Shouldn't matter, but.
Good morning, folks. It's Heather. I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes to see if we get a few more folks, and we'll start her up. And just a reminder to mute when you can for background noise. Thanks.
What? No.
All right. Good morning, folks. Just wanted to say good morning to everyone, and we'll start there now. We might get a few more people in, and just a reminder for everyone to mute either your phone, your system, or if you want to do it through this system, it's a star 6, which would be great for background noise. We're going to be doing influence and persuasion today, which is a little bit of a different topic, and I'm hoping that you'll have a little bit of a shift in perspective on things. Although knowing your world and the world you live in between clients and colleagues, I think you'll connect with it really well. As normal, we're going to spread it over the 2 sessions today. So we're going to talk about what is persuasion and what is influence, because they're often used interchangeably. So we're going to walk a little bit through that. We're going to look at the levers, so the main components of influence.
Yeah, I've got a webinar here for a little bit. I'm not sure how long it is.
Excuse me, someone on the call? Sorry, I just heard someone talking. I wasn't sure. Someone have a question, or? All right.
No.
Sorry, someone have a question? Okay, not sure if anyone heard that. If they did, they can put it in the chat. If I missed what he said. Then we're going to look at the process of influence. So how you walk through creating a situation where you can have more influence with clients, colleagues, direct reports, even people at higher levels in your organization. And we probably won't get to today. It'll probably be the second webinar. We'll be looking at resistance. So what happens when, it's fine and dandy to have great intentions and want to create more influence with somebody or an organization, but you'll often get resistance. So what that looks like, and we can brainstorm some ideas on how to overcome those. And finally, one of the biggest pieces, and I see this in all parts of my practice, or our practice here, and I see it elsewhere as well, in just creating your own network. So what's your network? What does it look like? Because that's a significant component in creating influence, is to have a broad network. So we'll talk about your own personal network, what you need for your career, that sort of thing, and how that works out for you. Okay, so I need everyone to sort of be on the ball here. I want you guys, and I know you guys there's a sales component to you. So I need you to try to persuade me that this is a good idea. So whether on the phone or chat, I want you to try to convince me and persuade me that having toasters for automobiles is a good thing. So comments, suggestions, questions, any of the above through the chat.
That's so cool.
And just a reminder for people to mute because I'm still getting some background noise there. Unless you want to talk, I'm happy to talk to you. Breakfast on the go. Love that, Athena. Thanks. Absolutely. Okay, keep going. What else can someone say to convince me this is a good idea? There's got to be someone else out there who has some sense of how this could be a possible thing to sell. I love that. If your battery's dead, just plug in the toaster and boost yourself. That's excellent. I love that. Excellent. Come on, someone give me one more. Not a car person. Well, that's interesting too. Maybe I'm not a car person. So there's a thing. You know, there's always a, you know, who's your client perspective as well here. Yes, warming up your hands, Brett, absolutely. That could be a very positive thing to do in the wintertime. I'm all over that. And I was going to say, I won't put words in your mouth, but the smell of it too could be fabulous for a morning drive to work. Anyone have any last comments? While you're thinking about that, just so what is it that is different? So what is it you don't know? What is it that you don't know in this scenario? I mean, you guys work in private industry and you work with clients or internal clients or supporting someone internally or a team. What is it you don't know here that could be helpful? That was a new client or potential new client. What would you want to know? Yeah. What motivates me? Absolutely. So there's so many pieces in this when you look at influence and persuasion that play into it. So yeah, who am I? What do I want? What motivates me? And maybe I don't even take my car to work, right? What is it that, you know, means something to me? Maybe I take the train if I'm in Toronto, or maybe, you know, there's lots of things that it could be. I don't have a license maybe. So again, all those pieces play into it. So we're going to tap into some of that stuff today, of which one of the main components is your own credibility as an example. So we'll spend a bit of time there for sure. Yeah, price means something, absolutely. It absolutely plays into it as well. I mean, if this was a buck, I'd say, sure, why not? Let's give it a go. If it's a freebie, bring it on. Again, what does it mean? Yeah, what's my price sensitivity? What means something to me? Do I have kids in the car? Would I be worried about it? You know, so all those pieces play into it. So if you look at the difference between them, so, you know, persuasion and influence. So persuasion is like presenting a case in a way to sway people. So you're swaying their opinion, make them believe things, or motivate them, as you said. So knowing what they are motivated by, motivating them to a decision. The decision could be anything. It could be selling something. It could be working with somebody. It could be your team. It could be lots of different components. So persuasion can be used to spur someone into action or make a decision. But sometimes it's without actually earning their sincere buy-in. So that's a piece there. So it's more of a selling component. So in the traditional sense. So how comfortable do you feel when the decision and you've got a decision even just in a few short minutes. For example, I went out and had to buy a new laptop. So I went into Best Buy to buy a new laptop, and I did tons of research, had a sense of what I was looking for, and ended up going with a little bit of a different model, which I was comfortable with. But I always had that sense when I was leaving, I was like, I know I'm going to have that doubt. So I had a few doubts after talking to the fellow. Really nice guy, right? But I didn't know him from Adam. I knew he was a student up at MUN because I'm a chatter, so I found a little bit out about him. But I don't necessarily trust him, right? I don't know him. I don't necessarily trust in the organization. Not sure, this is a lot of sales focused, he persuaded me to some extent, but did I have buyer's remorse? I don't think so, but it's very possible I could have, right? So it was in the moment. I was there for probably 20, 30 minutes, chatting with him, figuring things out. But at the end of the day, I could have had buyer's remorse. Influence, though, and again, persuasion has a place, and we'll talk about that in a second. But an influence is having a vision of what you want an outcome to be. And then without forcing people, coercing people, you motivate people, you work with them, whether your staff or your clients or whatever it is. And then through working with them, you work towards making that outcome happen, okay? You're winning over their heart, their respect, and you're inspiring them to take action, which more chances than not, it's in your favor, right? It's a particular decision in your favor. So if time's an issue, persuasion definitely, is handy, right? To actually keep things moving. Some of you would work probably, a lot in the personal line space. You're not spending hideous amounts of time with your clients. I mean, it's a pretty quick process. But when you look at it from a larger perspective or larger clients or team perspective, i.e. from a leadership perspective, influence is definitely preferred. So you don't have the buyer's remorse. You don't feel like you're being sold something and you're creating that relationship. Influence is based on trust and credibility, right? Which has a huge component. And that happens over time. It's not a quick turnaround. And now, having said that, persuasion actually is very effective. If you've already got influence with a person, so say there's a client of yours, colleague of yours, or whatever, you've already got a bit of that buy-in in general, so you've got influence with that person, then persuasion can actually be extremely effective. It's probably one of the most effective tools. So if you trust me, so you said, oh, she does leadership and coaching, so if I have a leadership question, I'm going to go talk to her. Maybe I've got some credibility with you guys. Maybe I've got a sense where even before we've actually talked one-on-one, you have a sense of who I am. So there might be a little bit of influence there. So if I actually persuaded you to do something, not that that's my natural way, but if I did, then you may have a sense of enough trust to not have that sense of buyer's remorse, right? Influence grows out of relationships. So sort of the end result of all the things that you do, the actions, the behaviors, and everything you do to build the trust, and adding value to them versus persuasion, which is more in the moment. So if you have influence, again, you can use persuasion, but it's one piece of influence. So I'm hoping that makes a bit of sense because I'm going to do a little quiz here now. So I want you to tell me in the chat or whatever, which one, I've got 11 I think here, which one's influence and which one's persuasion. Just if you have a sense of what that looks like, kind of do a little test and see how you feel about it. All right, so if I choose specific words and phrases to strike a chord with a specific audience. So I know I'm speaking to X association, I'm going out to their conference and I'm speaking to them and I'm choosing words that I know that they're going to like. Is that influence or persuasion? Put it in the chat. Influence, okay, this one person says influence. What about someone else? Persuasion, Sherry says persuasion. Or sorry, someone says persuasion. Someone else says, oh, lots of persuasions coming through. Yes, I would classify that as persuasion. It's very specific. It's more somewhat in the moment, right? It's not over a long period of time. And as much as there might be a small bit of credibility there, a lot of people won't know who the heck I am. So let's pick another one. Giving others a voice in the decision-making process. So if you go and give maybe some of your team a little bit of a voice in that decision-making process, what is that? Okay. Good. Yeah, influence coming in. Exactly. That's absolutely influence for sure. Learning what keeps a person or group of people up at night. What do you think? Influence. Yes. Yes, that's influence. And I actually use that when I'm talking to clients, actually. What does keep you up at night? Because my job is to help them take that away. So providing assistance or resources without any expectation of reciprocity, of getting something back. And I know you guys do this with some of your clients. What's that one? Influence. Yes. Influence for sure. And again, you know what that breeds with your clients. They'll be coming back. Brokering meaningful relationships between unconnected groups. So you've got a client or a colleague who needs support or a client who needs support and you're referring them on to someone else, which I actually did with someone yesterday. Yes, and influence. Yeah, we've got influence there as well. Steering a conversation through a path of predictable choices. Yeah, definitely a persuasion for sure in that one. Orchestrating conditions, so situation, place, whatever, to interact with others to optimize the likelihood of a desirable outcome. A little fancy in the words there, I apologize. So if I've got somebody that I'm going to make sure I run into in an optimal place that makes sense for me, persuasion. Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's hope the person doesn't find out I did that. Listening and paraphrasing back what I said. Yes, I'm sure you learned this or you've done this with between staff and clients and anyone really. Just it gives people a great sense, and we've talked about it in these sessions too. A great sense of wow, they're listening to me. You know, wow, that it absolutely fills that bucket for sure. Delivering, this is an interesting one. Delivering bad news sooner or later. We always have it with our clients or with our staff. What's that one? Influence, yes. Giving others credit whenever possible. And I'll throw the last one, and both are the same in the end. So maintaining a track record of consistent success in a particular area. So what are those two? One person tell me what those two are. Influence, yes. Thanks for that. Thanks for all your participation, guys. It just helps us start thinking about all the different ways that you can start creating more influence with people. And I know that you guys do this probably more often than you think, but sometimes you need to be more of a conscious effort to do this if you have a strategic relationship, whether internally or externally, that you've got to work with to think about how you can do this stuff. And again, you're in private industry, so you understand a lot of this. It's just really phrasing it in the right way. Now, I don't mean it, I've got what is influence important, why is it important at your organization today? But in general, in all organizations, probably similar to yours, why would influence be really important? Yes, absolutely. Your team, support of your team, building trust, a lot of the stuff we've talked about really, you know, in terms of benefit, right? Clients that can help with, at the end of the day, it actually really help with the bottom line. You got loyalty, respect, absolutely. And it's something that a lot of us don't actually know the amount of influence we have. Sometimes we see little, you know, like, wow, that person actually, I got to have people call me out of the blue. And I'm like, wow, didn't know that I had influence with this person. Or someone referred my name, or, you know, like it is with clients. And like, wow, I didn't realize I had filled that bucket up. So what makes a great leader? This, I just popped this in because I thought this might be, it's more of a research component, but I do this one assessment called the LEA, and I do a lot with 360s, and they're all over the world. This assessment is used all over the world, well, 140 countries or something. And some of the research, well, the research they do is really important in my mind. So they look, oftentimes you'll see research come out, and it's consistently been done over the last 10 years. And this study was similar to some other ones they did, and it's 3,000 leaders. And they looked at how are overall leadership effectiveness, okay, regardless of gender, because they actually had a gender component to this as well. So overall leadership is effectiveness. What are the key ones? So they have 22 major competencies that they use, and these are the ones that mean the most. So they're looking how effective some leader is in terms of their own eyes, but also the eyes of everyone around them, because what 360s are. They look at other people and how they view them. These are the ones that came out as important. Okay, so there are lots of important ones in there, but these are the ones that showed when leaders did well, when they got promoted, when they were seen as effective. These are the ones. So strategic, which we're going to talk about next time, by the way. Next month will be about strategy and strategic mindset. Management focus, which is taking charge. Clarity and amount of communication that you give. Enthusiasm. Taking control of outcomes, so that has an accountability component. And persuasion and influencing others. So those are the ones that stand out. You know, this is global, but this one was actually a North American study. And they've had at least 4 or 5 other ones which have had the same results. So I thought it'd be interesting for you to see in how you're being viewed. This is a significant topic. So where do you find yourself in every day where you need to influence? So not those larger pieces. Where is the influence on a daily basis? Do you see it? Or even internally. Let's try internally. Where do you see it internally on a daily basis that you need to either use influence or seek influence? Where would you need that? What would you be doing where you'd want to tap into your influence or use that relationship? Delegation, absolutely. That's a good one. So whether somebody, you know, this is a big sense of delegation is a big piece for some folks if you're delegating to somebody or if you're being delegated to. Excellent. Anyone else? Yeah, selling. Absolutely. No brainer. With your team, and there's so many ways it can be within your team. And your team could be the team of peers. You know, if you're on the leadership team as an example, it could be in your leadership team. Maybe you have to get something from another colleague of yours, right? You have to ask for something or do something or convince them of something, right? So where, do you have influence with that person? We're going to tap into that now in a few minutes. I'm going to get you to think about somebody that you actually, I'm going to see how much credibility you have with someone. All right. So in terms of influence, there's multiple things you can look at. The model sort of that I've got here is around 3 elements. One of them, which I've already mentioned, is credibility. And it's really who you are, right? Your credibility and the quality of those relationships. It's how you're seen by others as influential and how people will see you, how credible you are. It has a huge, it's actually a huge one, which is why I have it on the bottom. If you're seen as credible, people are more likely to agree with what you say. And that makes sense, right? You go out, you know you've got some credibility. We've all got clients where we know we have credibility, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. So if I have credibility and I say something, they're much more likely to listen to me. They're much more likely to have that conversation, be open to something I'm saying, or actually, be open to a meeting, as an example. And then the other one that stands out, like even when we talked at the beginning and I sort of made you do that little exercise around the toaster, one of the things that came out of there was evidence, so the logic, so the rational perspective, the research. So why is this good? Why is this product good, right? It's the evidence behind it. It's this covers this covers that, this covers that, this will do that, this will do this. So it's a sense of logic and fact are thrown into there. And that's where most people go. Most people try to convince by facts. And I know people that are very task and fact oriented, sort of, those folks, if you're one of them. I don't understand. Why can't I convince someone of something if I just tell them it's going to work, right? Because that's not the only element that plays here. Okay. One thing that often gets missed is the emotion. So, for example, with the one with the toaster, if I have children, then those children in the car with the toaster, is it safe, right? Could I play into that? Somebody did, though, in terms of keeping warm, so it has a sense of warmth to it. That absolutely has an emotional component to it, right? So playing to that, a lot of times we don't do. I have another one about cats on roller skates, I think it is. And, I have had people do that whole thing in a session, and nobody has mentioned, well, ask the person, do you have a cat? Do you like animals? So understanding the person helps you understand how those emotions play out. So those 3 sort of components, I mean, the relationships count in all this, and the more people like you and trust you. So that credibility piece is the baseline, right? You're not going to get anywhere unless it's, in terms of influence, and unless that's actually there. In terms of the emotional one, you're sort of stirring it, but you can't stir something if it's not there. Okay, so it's sort of, those are the ones that we want to look at. We're going to focus mostly, obviously, on the credibility space, and we'll touch on the emotion as well. So the process of influence, credibility is the beginning. Okay, it's even before you start even thinking about something, the credibility will exist or it will not. Okay, and we're going to talk about what that means. And the process of influence, the components. We've got position, your position on the topic or the opinion or whatever you're trying to do. The stakeholders, when I mean that, and we'll get to it after, is more anybody. It could be a client, it could be your boss, it could be your peer, it could be a separate entity altogether. What you have to do to get ready for that, to create and make it have an outcome that you want, and then adaptation. So how do you adapt? And that's where the resistance piece comes in as well, because as much as you can predict resistance can occur in the moment. So we'll talk about that. It won't be this time, it'll be next time for sure. Okay, so when you think about someone trying to convince or influence you, and they're credible in your eyes. So think about when someone's trying to convince you of something and they're credible. Now think of a time when there's someone trying to convince you and they're not credible. And I can go back to my Best Buy guy, nice as he was. What's the difference between the two? Could be someone new in your world who's trying to convince you to do something, or sway you in a certain way. What's the difference between that and someone that's credible? What's credible and what's not credible? What stands out? Someone give me a nugget there. Come on, somebody give me one. You know me well enough to know I'm going to stay honest. Come on, folks. Someone's credible or they're not credible. What's the difference? Is there someone there? Come on. There's someone. I'm going to call on somebody if you don't.
There's answers in the chat box. Can you see them?
No, I can't see them. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you so much for
we're
telling me.
you.
Aw, thanks, guys. I can't see it. I must have frozen up. Thanks so much for telling me. Okay, let me just reset mine. Just give me a second. Oh, hang on now. Whoops, can't give it all away here. Let me reset. Oh, there we go. I gotcha. Oh, thanks. I wasn't feeling the love, now I'm feeling low. Thanks, guys. All right, let's see. Oh my gosh, these are great. All right, so trust, connection. Didn't listen to them. Let's see. Doing what they're preaching. Absolutely, it comes to saying credibility is, yeah, along with knowledge. Knowledge is a big piece. It absolutely is a great big piece. So I promise you, I've fixed my chat box. So all that work of yours will not go astray next time. All right. So personal credibility, yeah, and it plays in exactly what you guys are saying. So almost exactly, actually, you were perfect in your responses. So credentials is your resume. So it's essential. That's what I call it, your resume. it's your education, your background, your skills, your competencies. So, credibility can be, for example, if you use LinkedIn, but I have people looking me up on LinkedIn, for example, and they'll see, oh, she's got this and she's got that. Oh, she's worked with this person, or is this a recommendation from this person? So that's really the resume, right? So what's the background? What's the experience? Do they perceive you as having the skills that make sense for them, right? So there's your credibility piece. Credential piece. And then you get your track record. So it's past successes. So it's a little bit of your credentials to some extent. And are you seen as a good risk? Is it worth reaching out? Is it worth connecting? Is it worth investing in something? Because not everyone's familiar with your track record, right? So even, like, for example, LinkedIn, I have very few things on LinkedIn. There's some recommendations, et cetera, from clients. But otherwise, how do people know? If it's internally and I'm trying to create influence, oftentimes I've asked people, so how do you get them to know your track record, right? Sometimes you have to do a bit of a knowledge dump on somebody and sort of in a nice way and say, oh, yeah, I've done that sort of work before, or I've got a client that's done that before, or yeah, that's absolutely a thing I've done as a leader in another organization. I could take that on here. So how do you actually become more visible to them, right? So your track record, you may know, but not everyone else is going to know. And yeah, authenticity, which someone brought up as well. So it's what you say and what you do. So being authentic in that, right? Being congruent. So what I'm saying is what I'm doing, speaking truthfully. Another one's accepting failure, apologizing when mistakes are made, because we've all done them, and behaving ethically. So responding authentically is significant. And we've all been there where we've had that moment of, oh, should I say what's real or not? And the more authentic you are, within reason, of course, it can be very helpful in creating influence and creating that trust piece. So I had someone yesterday who said, can you do this kind of work? And I said, I can, but I know someone who could do it and has done it more often than me and has more experience in that area. So I forwarded them on to someone who I guess a competitor, whatever you call it, in my world. It's a little different than yours. So, demonstrating respect is to do with hearing other people's perspectives, right? It's that listening, that engagement, that looking at them and asking questions about them, and digging into what they're talking about, and making sure that you actually hear them and you're connected. And of course, there's other elements there as well. And trust is critical, and some of those play into it as well, right? Trust is also, don't mislead me, and all those pieces about they know my motives are good, they're not going to hurt me. But it's also, if you're authentic and you do that in a well, and the respect piece, then trust will follow, and the quality of the relationships. And I want to say one thing about that for leaders. I have like, even when we've talked briefly about conflict before, understanding the long-term nature of relationships is key. So some of us are a little more competitive than others. So if I'm a competitive sort and I'm getting into a discussion with somebody, or an argument, shall we say, or a heated debate on something, the key there is, do you really need to win that argument, or is the quality of the relationship more important? So again, keep that in mind. You actually have some relationships now that are high quality, and there may be some that are low, right? So understanding who do you need to be connected to is significant from a client or internal perspective. So how do you build it? Let's go to the second one. What's a surefire way to derail credibility at, I won't say your organization, because I guess you're all from different ones. So let's say, what would be a way to derail it in most organizations, in your mind, in your industry? And I have the chat available. I can see it. Oh yeah, unethical. Yeah, that's huge. Absolutely huge. I mean, everything. I mean, as much as people say, oh, you're only as good as your last sale or whatever, which isn't true, because there's a big component of trust in relationship. But if you all of a sudden hit the unethical button, yeah, pretty well that negates everything. Lying, is absolute in any industry. And in yours, I mean, it could lead to significant risk for a client or with an employee. And not willing to lead by example. There's nothing worse, you're right, than having somebody who says, oh, you have to be ethical, you have to do this, and all of a sudden you see them pushing the envelope behind a client, or in the background. So it's amazing how much it can actually be derailed. I think the nice thing to think about, though, when you think about credibility, because it sounds like it's a very precarious piece, but it's really not. It's sort of, you hear about different buckets. I've talked about the trust bucket before, and the trust is a piece of this. So your credibility balance. So think about it like a bank account or a bucket. So you fill up your bucket, you fill up your piggy bank. So coming in, you're never going to start at zero. There's always something. You could theoretically be a negative, but let's hope that if I get a phone call, you get a phone call, or an employee comes in, there's a sense of there's some credibility there. Otherwise, they wouldn't come in to talk to you. So it never starts at zero. But at the end of the day, it goes up and down. It has to be, you have to commit to it. Just because I had a relationship with someone, 10 years ago and it was positive doesn't mean I'm at zero, but it certainly does not mean it's the same as it was 10 years ago, right? So there's an element of nurturing relationships that's really significant. So what I want you to do now, we're going to do a quick exercise, and I want you to think of someone that you have credibility with, okay? So I want you to take a piece of paper, and I'm going to give you, say, 2 minutes, and I want you to write down what are the factors, what are the things that make you credible with that person, okay? So we're going to pick one person to start. We're going to do another one in a minute. I want you to pick in a different capacity, but this one I want you to pick just one person whom you have credibility with, you believe you do, and 3 to 5 reasons or ideas of why you are credible. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. All right, we got some people poking it in the chat, which is brilliant. Love that. So yeah, history, trust. I mean, everyone's got something. It might be very specific. It could be something you did with them, a project you worked on. So write those. You can pump them in, which is brilliant. And make sure you write them down for sure. So I love seeing them. The honesty, someone's got there about how forthcoming you might be, and whatever happens, that person, you're going to be honest with them. That's an incredible sense of trust. Nice, willing to listen, honesty, experience plays into it. Now, okay, perfect. So you've sort of come on your way there. So we'll pop into the next one here I've got. Now I want you to think of 2 other people. Now it could be at your organization or it could be a client as an example, okay? So I want you to think about, based on those, I want you to put a plus or a minus sign next to each of those for stakeholder number 1, or sorry, for stakeholder number 2 and 3, whether you have those with that person or not. Okay, sometimes you will not have that with that next person. So say you pick a client of yours, you pick another employee of yours, what is there, i.e. a plus, or what is not, which would be a negative. So take that for 2 additional folks. I'll give you another 30 seconds or 45 seconds there. All right, that should give you enough to have a sense of it. There are things with credibility that you have with one person that you do not have with another. There could be things that you have done with one person that doesn't mean something to another. Okay? So it's really significant to understand that just because I'm one way, period, does not give me influence or credibility with everyone. And I've got a video I'll show you in a second, and it actually sort of happened to me to some extent. You'll laugh when you see it. it does vary significantly from one person to another, and it's got to be managed that way. And something that could mean something to someone now may not mean the same thing down the road, right? So years ago, well, I'll tell the story after, but I don't want to ruin the video, which I'm hoping will work. And it may not work. We're going to see. I don't know if the video will work with sound. We'll have to check it out and see. Hang on now. I'm going to, give me a second.
I know it's your first date, but thanks, we're just in a bit of a jam. All this has to get out today. Yeah, I don't do shipping. Oh, no, it's very easy. We use FedEx.com. Anybody can do it. You don't understand. I have an MBA. Oh, you have an MBA? Yeah. In that case, I'll have to show you how to do it. FedEx.com makes shipping so fast and easy, even an MBA can do it. Relax, it's FedEx.
Now, could you guys hear that? Please let me know in the chat if you could hear that or not. Yes, excellent. Okay. And I thought it was great. But years ago, I used to laugh. Just everyone was going out and getting an MBA. And when I see that, I just think it's the funniest thing. And it's interesting because years ago, though, when you had an MBA, as much as you joke about it here, now it doesn't mean as much. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got a master's degree too, and it really does have credibility. When I started in this one company, I had my boss actually didn't have even an undergrad. And it's no big deal, right? It's no big deal. She was amazing. She was very successful, experienced, etc. And I made a comment. I was quite young, and I made a comment about having a master's degree. And I said, oh, yeah, I did that when I did my master's degree. And I saw this look on her face. And, you know, it was something where she hated the fact that people would say, oh, I know things because I have a master's degree or something. And of course, I was being kind of innocent about it, but it absolutely destroyed that relationship for a period of time. I could see her pulling away. I could see, you know, to me, then my influence then had to, you know, I had to create that credibility with her, had to be in a different way, right? It was something where, wow, that master's degree really did not help. And I totally had to get where her head was. But again, it was a great learning for me, right? Having that influence with her had nothing to do with that. And I don't know if I really was trying to do that, but it was definitely a big mistake on my part when I look at her now. So, whoops, sorry, folks. Not on the ball this morning. Let's try this again. Okay, where are we? Next one. There we go. So what makes you believe Yoda? I was trying to think of somebody. I don't know if anyone's a Star Wars fan, although I kind of am. What makes you believe Yoda? What does Yoda have that you actually would look at and say, yeah, the credibility bucket's kind of there? What would it be? Wisdom. Yes. Does he reek wisdom? It's incredible. Even with his funny little voice. He even looks like he should have wisdom with his little wrinkles and age. The old factor does play into it. There is a sense there. When I was younger, I remember working so hard to influence and be credible in the eyes of the leadership when I was in World Bank. And I was 22, starting there, managing up to 26 people. So it was a big jump. And I look back, I did everything. I dyed my hair to look older. I did everything I could. So when you say older, I get that for sure. But there obviously there's an innate bias towards the young. Now I just want to finish off today just on this is another element, you know, I just want to get into things more clienty sort of things, because I know that's kind of the world you live in. And this is just sort of some reminders. And then what we'll do next time is we're going to go finish up the process of influence, and we'll talk about resistance and talk about your network. So that's going to be the next session. So words, do they enhance credibility? So again, you said it full out in here. Be honest. Don't tell lies or even exaggerate, right? It stands true. As much as, you know, everyone can have a different tone, can you speak a little bit with expression? Needless to say, you do mirror your client, right? So if when I walk in and I have a client who's really low key, I absolutely pull it back because I'm pretty out there, pretty expressive. But at the same time, I see people who have no expression or limited expression, and just having a little bit of emphasis on certain words or body language to show that expression. It could be using their hands or whatever it might be. It shows expression, it shows interest, it also shows enthusiasm as well. So introducing your clients to others, which I did yesterday, right? I introduced someone to somebody. So not even just talking about them, introducing them, your clients to others. It could be other clients of yours. It could be making those connections. Absolutely increases that. I have people calling me who say, do you know so-and-so, or can you introduce me to so-and-so, or who's someone in this space you'd recommend? And I absolutely find the best person for them. And I'm sure you do too, but I'm just saying, just reminders. And when you don't know, say so, right? Obvious. Sometimes we get that, oh my gosh, I have no idea, how am I going to respond to that? And just coming out and saying, I'm really not sure, can lead to incredible credibility. I've been with clients before, senior folks, big companies or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know how best to do that. Can I get back to you in a couple of days? And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. There's never usually an issue there. Now, usually I have some credibility with them at that point. If that was my first experience and the one question they asked me, I didn't have an answer to, and I had to get back to them on it. It was a simple one. Obviously, credibility wouldn't be there, but it, something complex I had, and I just was like, I have to think that through, or I had to do a little, looking around and doing some research on it. And relaxing is a big thing. I find credibility wise, if I sit there, you're never ever going to have all the answers, right? You just relax, listen, ask questions to your client or your team for that matter. Asking them questions and understanding is critical. Doing your homework. If you love your topic, it'll show. Comments around small things. Yeah, deliver them quietly and on time. I don't know if you've ever, commitments I find are a funny thing. I'm very enthusiastic, so I've always had that. Oh, I can absolutely get that for you, and I can do that by next Friday. So I learned over time, because I'm very much an achiever type, but I also probably overpromised a little bit. So if you make commitments, first of all, make sure that you can deliver on them, and don't over deliver. And I think with clients too, they very much respect. Like I had a client, I'm going on vacation now for 2 weeks, and I had a client ask me for something. I was very open and honest, and I said, I can try, but there's no guarantee. So if you need that done, I can find someone else for you to get that done, right? So making commitments is really significant. Goals and agendas, especially for your team, make sure they have clear goals, and the goals are met, so there's a sense of accountability there that gets done, because the worst thing is to have those meetings and people come in and they don't know what happens to things. They just fall off the radar. That's not going to help with your credibility as a leader. So yeah, fit and feel around terminology, styles, formats, and hours. Yeah, just how they feel about that, and reconfirm schedule changes before they happen, and announce changes as they occur. So things happen, things change. How can you sort of roll with that? So in terms of time, I'm going to stop there today. What we're going to do is we're going to walk through position, stakeholders, pre-work, and adaptation, which is resistance, next time, as well as talking about your networks. So it's a little different today. It's not quite as concrete, but I'm hoping you got something out of it. If nothing else, thinking about who that you thought of, you could create influence with in a different way. How can you elevate your credibility? So if you want to put anything in the chat, or just have a great day. I'm off on vacation, so I'm hoping I'll be talking to you, I think the week I get back, or a few days after I get back, and we'll finish her up. So thanks very much, everyone, and incredible input, and apologies for my chat box. I've had a learning moment. Appreciate it. Thanks very much, folks, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Rich,